Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm a wife, a homeschool mom, and an avid reader. It is July, and I thought I would do the mid year freak out um, tag and share with you kind of some of my favorite books this year, along with where I'm at in my reading goals. So, starting out with my reading goals, I have currently read 61 of 120 books, which puts me about 4 books behind. This year, my summer reading has been better, but I've also been a lot more consistent this year, month to month, in my reading. I haven't had really tiny months and then really huge months. So, I do need to catch up before we start school for the year because I'm going to have a lot more responsibilities then. But even if I don't hit 120 books, it's not the end of the world. My main goal is just to keep reading books and enjoying them. So let's continue on with the best book of the year for me, and that has been Gareth Brown's The Book of Doors. This one I got a NetGalley copy of and really enjoyed it. I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed this one. The story is following a woman who works at a bookstore and a man who is a regular customer dies in front of her, and she has left this book. And it just leads her to a totally unexpected adventure for her. If you enjoyed The Night Library, if you enjoyed The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and there's a third one. What's the third one? And if you enjoyed The Night Circus, this one is recommended to you based on those three. I enjoyed all three of those, so this shouldn't have surprised me as much as it did, but it is a little bit of a surprise that I read that in January and it's still what I consider my best book of 2024. That is going to lead me to the best sequel of the year, and that one is going to be the second book. This is the first book, House of Bane and Blood. The second book was City of Mirth and Malice. As soon as I finished this by Alexis L. Menard, the second book was coming out on Kindle Unlimited and I picked it up. This one is following a couple who are kind of star-crossed lovers type mentality. It did remind me a lot of Romeo and Juliet, but we have two characters and their families are, or they're not families, but their races are against each other. One is a magic user, the other is not. And they end up getting married, and it's just a very sweet story overall. There is a lot of dark romance in here, but overall, great series that I've read so far. And the second book, I think, was even better than the first book, but that was probably because there wasn't a lot of setup for the characters. So, next up is the most anticipated releases from the second half of the year. Both of these, you might be a little surprised, are Brandon Sanderson books. The first one is called A Very Boring Book. This is the story is written by Brandon Sanderson. It is a picture book and has a separate artist. This one comes out in September, and I'm really excited to get it and even bring it into my early elementary literature class and share my love of Brandon Sanderson and dragons with my students. The other book is also by Brandon Sanderson, and it is the fifth book. This is not the copy of it, this is the first book, but the fifth book in the Stormlight archive, called Wind and Truth. So I've really enjoyed the Stormlight archive, and I am looking forward to the next book in that series. All of these are very chunky books. So, with that one coming out at the end of December, I have a feeling it's actually going to be a 2025 read, but I am excited for its release this year. Up next is the biggest disappointment of 2024. For me, it was the Agents of the Crown series. And the reason why it was such a disappointment is because there were the overarching series was good, and I enjoyed my time in that world, but I don't feel that each book was well executed, and you really have to read all four of the books to understand what's going on and what the author's purpose in writing this series was. So it it was a disappointment for me. I don't think that it's going to be a disappointment for all readers, but I think if you go in knowing that it's going to take all four books to understand the plot of the book, I think it would be a lot more enjoyable, or at least it would have been for me. For the biggest surprise was actually two books. One I've already mentioned, and that was The House of Bane and Blood. As soon as I finished this one, I wanted to start the second book. I did have to wait about a week for it to be released, but overall, it was a great story, and I really had fun with the magic system in that one. And the other one is Court of Tricksters by S.L. Prater. This one, again, as soon as I finished this book, I had to find the second one. Luckily, again, it was on KU, and I started it. I devoured the second one even faster than I did the first one, and had a great time with this one. And my new favorite character actually comes from this book, and that is Rain. She's just a feisty female main character and doesn't let anyone push her around. So I had a great time with this one. My favorite new author, again, I already talked a little bit about this one, and that was Gareth Brown and his House of Doors. The writing in that just really blew me away, and I had a great time with that book, and I'm excited to see if Gareth Brown is coming out with anything else in the future. A book that made me cry was surprisingly The Bright Side of Going Dark by Kelly Harms. In this one, we have a main character who has decided the best way to move forward in her life is to remove herself from social media. And I knew some of the things going on in this book from the very beginning, such as our main character, Mia, she became a social media celebrity because of her dog. She and her dog had a great relationship. They did a lot of things. And then when the dog died, she continued on social media. So it's when you know that the dog doesn't survive, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting to read the dog's death on the page where I did. I expected it, if it was going to happen, to be toward the beginning, but it really tore my heart out to see Mia and her struggle through um, that grief. And then a book that made me happy is Brandon Sanderson's Defiant. This is the third in the Skyward series. This actually wraps up the story arc with these particular characters, um, and with Spensa and um, Mbot, but the story is supposed to continue with different characters later on. But this was a great way, I think, that Sanderson brought everything together, and I really, really enjoyed this one. Now that leads me to the final part of this video, and that is books that I want to read in the second half of 2024. These are books that honestly I kind of put on my 2024 list to read, and it's time to go on ahead and read them. The first one is Written in My Own Heart's Blood. I've actually had this on my TBR now for the last like 6 months and haven't read it. This one is continuing Claire and Jamie Fraser. I have this book and one other, and my goal was actually to read one a month last year and give myself a 2 month kind of window of flexibility. But here we are now 18 months later, and I still have the final 2 books to finish. So one book or one series to finish is Outlander. Another series that I do want to finish is Silence in Shadows by Darcy Coates. This is the 4th book in the Black Winter series. I've really enjoyed this series. It's just making it a priority to finish it. Another series to finish is Tracy Wolf's Crave series, and the final one that I need to read is Cherish. I hadn't read it yet because it was not available on KU. I need to check again and see if it is. And even if it's not, maybe that's a purchase I go on ahead and make this year so I can finish the series. Up next, as far as books to finish or series to finish, I have Under the Smoke-Strewn Sky. This is the 4th in a Deborah Baker's series for the Over the Woodward Wall, the Up and Under series. I have enjoyed this series so much. It's been a lot of fun. This is not the 4th book. This is the 2nd book. It's the only one I own. And I've enjoyed watching these characters try to get out of the Up and Under and get back home. The series has been so fun. The last series that I still need to finish in 2024 is from Lori Frost's The Black Witch series. This is the 1st book in that series, but I do need to get the Dryad Storm and finish it. I have, again, enjoyed the series. This is a YA series about a girl who, her grandmother was the Black Witch, and there is thought that she might be as well, but there is the slight hiccup of she has very little magical talent. And so, as we get through this series, we're finding out kind of that things are more ugly than it seemed, and maybe the Black Witch is not someone to be praised. And finally, a book that I am looking forward to reading is Firefly What Makes Us Mighty. This is the sixth book in this series that just follows the characters of Firefly. To add to the one season of this show that we had, this has become kind of a cult classic, and many people are wanting to, or were wanting more. And so Joss Whedon came alongside with some other authors and have continued to flesh out the world for us. But there we have it, short and sweet, my mid-year freak out, and hopefully this will give you some ideas if there are some books or series that you want to read, or that maybe you have read and you want to encourage me to keep reading, or just share your feelings on different books. Leave me a comment below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.